Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Sports Insight with your host, Alamdar Khan. And as you all know, the name says it all. It's all about sports from all across the globe. And what you can do actually is reach out to us on our social media handles, which is at the rate of Indus News Sports. And you can reach us on the Twitter side, and you can reach us on the Instagram side as well. But anyways, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start up with the headlines. Yes, Yunus willing to be grilled over the team's poor performance that was shown in New Zealand. Sri Lanka versus England. Yes, the second test, England took the first victory, and it was very, very interesting. We'll definitely be talking about that. Yes, from the world of NBA, Kyrie Irving is joining the Brooklyn Nets back after his leave of absence. Yes, and with regards to that, Cristiano Ronaldo actually wins the Italian Super Cup, and he scored his 760th goal. And yes, with regards to Fulham versus Manchester United, Paul Pogba actually managed to take Manchester United on the top. And yes, Grand National winning rider Devin Mullen has announced his retirement from the saddle at the age of 24. So yes, those were the headlines, and as you know, it's a very interesting subject that's currently underway. Like South Africa's visit to Pakistan, that's one of the most interesting things that is currently underway. We'll definitely be talking more about that. Why is that so? Because it's going to be interesting because of the fact that they're here and they were tested obviously negative and they've been practicing on our soil. It becomes technically very difficult for a team to visit some other place and then obviously go into the quarantine zone. We've been talking about this on our show for a while now. But before that, Yunus Khan actually is obviously ready to be blamed with regards to whatever happened in New Zealand with Pakistan. We'll definitely be talking about that. So we'll switch on to Zahir Adams, who's joined us from Cape Town, South Africa. Hello, Zahir. How are you?
Hi there. I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I am good myself. Thank you for being a part of the show. So I would like to have more in-depth knowledge and analysis with regards to South Africa, because that's your main forte, and you are a cricket journalist, so you definitely know more about the idea. So how do you see South African team being prepared after their victory against Sri Lanka and then coming to Pakistan and not going through that COVID-19 protocols on that high level, which obviously we did when we went to New Zealand, and we were literally devastated against New Zealand. But anyways, we'll start with how you see South Africa. How prepared is South Africa for Pakistan?
First of all, thank you for having me on the show. I think it's in terms of South African cricket, we've been through quite a bit down here as well, particularly in Cape Town. If you remember, England came to visit South Africa for a one-day series and a T20 series, and unfortunately the one-day series never even got underway because of COVID issues in relation to the bio bubble or the biosecure environment that the teams were in. England felt that the biosecure environment was breached when a couple of the Proteas players tested positive. They had false negatives, but yet still they returned home. So South Africans know all about the complications related to COVID, COVID bio bubbles and this environment. And it was just a relief that we actually got some international cricket eventually when Sri Lanka arrived in South Africa. There was huge doubt whether the tour was actually going to go ahead. The domestic season had also been interrupted. The final round of the four-day domestic matches had been postponed, and the one-day competition has actually been moved to one venue, one biosecure venue. It's not moving around the country. So South Africa had various issues to get the season underway. So when Sri Lanka actually came, it was more relief that they could actually eventually play some international cricket, that they could manage to play Test cricket. Sri Lanka had actually previously been there in South Africa at the beginning of 2020, and actually the last team to tour to play Test cricket in South Africa, and actually they've won a series in South Africa, and right. that was quite a shock for South Africans. The fact that a subcontinental team had actually come to South Africa and won a series. So for South Africa to put in a performance where they've won 2-0 quite convincingly, in fact, was very heartwarming for not only the players but the fans as well. It was something that was much needed in South African cricket in regards to the way they went about their business. They were quite rusty at the beginning. It's a very young bowling attack. Kagiso Rabada wasn't available for the series. So it was Andriek Nortje, Lungi Nigiri, and debutant Luther Sipamla, along with another youngster, Vian Mulder, that actually carried the South African attack. Right. So it was very heartwarming, the performances they put in, and going forward into this Pakistani series.
So South Africa has really announced both of their teams. So initially they announced their squad for the Test series, and de Kock categorically said that we're not going to take Pakistan lightly. And secondly, then came the second squad that was announced for T20, and it was informed that even de Kock himself, with a key number of players, will actually be heading back home so that they can prepare themselves for the upcoming series against Australia. So strategically, how do you place both the squads that they've actually provided against Pakistan? Because the biggest edge that we will have right now is definitely going to be that we are on the home soil. So how do you see both the squads that were really announced lately?
So once again, that is a completely COVID-19 related issue. South Africa would have loved to field a full strength T20 side in Pakistan. They respect Pakistan's dominance as a T20 outfit. Their strength as a T20 outfit, particularly the young players they produce in the Pakistani Super League. But unfortunately, that cannot be the case because South Africans need to quarantine on the return home if they want to face Australia in time in the Test series. So unfortunately, they've needed to field a younger, more inexperienced side for the T20s because due to the fact that they have a Test series against Australia upon the return home, so the majority of the side will return home to play against Australia. So it's not about preparation. It's actually they need to quarantine when they return home to face Australia. And regarding the Test series, I think it's going to be quite evenly matched. That they both South Africa and Pakistan are both teams that are going through a rebuilding phase. They're finding their feet after the departure of quite a few experienced players. For the entire South African side, it's literally their first visit to Pakistan, bar du Plessis, who played in the ICC World 11 game. So it's a completely new experience. It's a new environment, and Pakistan definitely have the edge in that regard in terms of conditions. Yeah. But in regards to the quality of the players, I do think that it's going to be evenly matched. Both teams are quite young in the batting unit and the bowling unit, in fact. So definitely an evenly matched series expected.
The edge that I personally see right now with South Africa is obviously coming after a victory against Sri Lanka, coming to Pakistan. And thanks, by the way, for the input with regards to the quarantine factor that you added, because I personally did not gauge it that way. That that is probably one of the reasons that you just added up to that. They are ensuring to be in the quarantine once they go back, so that the rest of the team can actually play the T20. But what's interesting is the edge that I was talking about with South Africa is that after winning and coming. On the contrary, with Pakistan, it's very technical because when we recently announced our squad, so we have a major amount of changes. There's some phenomenal kids, some phenomenal people who've actually joined in. Obviously, they were in the first class and they're now given the opportunity to play the test. One of our key youngster, Kamran Ghulam, I've talked about him before as well. But what I'm trying to say is a few people have this thought process that, when you bring in someone new to the test, it becomes very technically difficult. So it's more of a risk and a gamble for Pakistan to play against South Africa. What do you think about that? How will that go?
I think, like I said, I think it's going to be evenly balanced because South Africa have a very young bowling attack. Right. So if Pakistan are picking a young batting lineup, they're going to come across a bowling lineup. So fortunately for the Proteas, Kagiso Rabada, he's back in the lineup and he'll add experience and ability with the reverse swing in particular. But right. The rest of the bowling, if you look at Lungi Nigiri, if you look at Andriek Nortje, Luther Sipamla, these guys collectively haven't played 10 test matches. So that's a very, very young bowling attack that's going to come up against this Pakistani batting line. So I think it might actually make for some exciting cricket.
Yeah, and with regards to bowling attack, I was recently having this conversation with one of the journalists, and we were told that there's a major possibility of South Africa having two spinners and two fast bowlers, keeping in mind the conditions of Pakistan.
So yes, so South Africa have picked Keshav Maharaj, the left-arm spinner, as the frontline spinner.
Right.
He's done very well for South Africa over the years. He was hardly used in the Sri Lankan series, so he's very keen to have a bowl. He loves bowling on the subcontinent. He took his career best 9 for on the last trip to Sri Lanka. So he'll really want to come out and show what he's worth again. And then South Africa have also picked an exciting left-arm wrist spinner, Itabrei Shamsi, who you probably know from South Africa's one-day at T20 lineup. We're looking forward to his celebrations whenever he takes a wicket. And then also the left-arm all-rounder, George Linder, who made his debut in the against India last year and also in the T20 series against England and really kicked on. He offers something with a bat as well, so he might come into the side. And so South Africa do have a few options in the spin department and we'll be keen to see how they go.
Interesting. Anyways, what I'll do is I'll take a quick break, and once we come back, we'll definitely talk more about Pakistan versus South Africa. Anyway, see you guys after the break. Yes, everyone, welcome back to the Sports Insight with your host, Alamdar. And yes, we've been talking about Pakistan versus South Africa. That's something that's going to start on the 26th of January in Pakistan. We'll start with the test matches against them, and then slowly and gradually we'll have the second test, and then we'll have 3 T20 matches. Is Pakistan truly prepared after what really happened back in New Zealand? But we still have with us Zahid Adams. Zahid, I would like to ask more on this side that, initially when we went to New Zealand to have this tour against them, we were told to be in that quarantine zone, in that bubble and in the isolation for 14 days. It was technically hard. It came up to a point of some breaching of protocols as well. And the team wasn't really up to their best level of expectations, maybe because of the lack of experience in that region and not being able to practice. However, South Africa has flown into Pakistan. They just tested all negative, and they've been allowed to practice. So if we talk about what really does this COVID-19 situation affect the psychological health of players when they travel, because there's so much happening out there these days, how do you see this bringing down bigger teams like all of a sudden?
No, definitely. I think it has a huge impact on the psychological performance of players. I think you look at a guy like Quinton de Kock, for example, Proteas captain. He's gone from an IPL bubble into an England bubble,
right?
And now he's into a very Sri Lankan bubble, and now again a Pakistani bubble. So right. it does take its toll on the individual, particularly a guy like Quinton and many others. You see, you get different type of players. Some guys like staying in their room, they're content with playing, whether it's PlayStation, Xbox, or reading a book or whatever. But then you get other guys who like exploring, the town and the cities that they visit. And Quinton is very much a guy that, when he's not playing cricket, he gets into his 4x4 and he goes into the bush or to the rivers and he fishes and he gets away from civilization a bit, whereas he can't do that at the moment. So, I mean, if you look at his performances, they haven't been, up to the usual mark. So to be asked the question, does it affect him or not? I think just it affects everybody. If you're not able to see your families, you're not able to wife, your children, your parents, it definitely has an effect on how you perform. So definitely the bio bubble does take a mental toll on the players.
Right. But yet again, I totally understand that side of the situation. But, we still need to have that conditioning of these players. It's not only cricket that I'm really talking about. I think it's almost in every sport these days. Even when I was talking about tennis the other day, Djokovic is really upset. So a next situation does appear with regards to the COVID situation. But on the psychological health perspective, don't you think the players need to be conditioned in such a way? They should be having those psychological, people with them to support them, to bring out the best of professionalism through them?
I think we definitely need the players need support in terms of mental conditioning coaches around them, particularly during this time. But I think what we need to understand, whether it's the media, whether it's spectators, whether it's broadcasters, is that we are not in a normal time. It is quite unique environment that we currently find ourselves in. And sport is, just the fact that we're still allowed to play sport and we can carry on playing sport, whether professional or amateur, is a major step. And because the numbers are still rising. In South Africa, we're currently experiencing a second wave. We're lockdown level 3s. You look at the UK, there's lockdown levels are still in place there. I'm not sure what the numbers are in Pakistan, but the COVID situation is a real thing, and it's something that really needs to be taken into consideration, that people are dying and people are still suffering from this disease. Today there were 2 janazas done in my street of COVID. So it's a real thing, and to expect just because they're professional sportsmen to perform at the level that were in the past, I think that's a little bit selfish from our side. I think it's the same with us going to work every day. It's to perform at that peak optimum levels when there's a pandemic going around. It's something that shouldn't be the norm anymore.
I know, but like you said, it's something unique that has happened, and we all, as the world itself has changed, the dimensions of sports has changed. But yet again, because there were so many takes on Pakistan losing to New Zealand, and a lot of people obviously had that thought process with regards to the COVID situation. But then, on the contrary, there was this match going on, between India and Australia, and how things really changed and turned the table, how India managed to turn the table, because I still remember they were pretty tricky with regards to asking them for the 4th test, because there was a lot of COVID restrictions and quarantine situations back in Australia, but in India still managed to buckle up and take that amazing lead against them.
I actually have a different take on that India-Australia series, because if you look throughout the India-Australia series, how many players India had broken down through injury, and that is COVID related. That is the fact that they haven't played for so long, and the muscles and the and everything's not working entirely like it used to. And guys like Jasper Bumrah, Mohammad Shami, they all picked up different strains throughout the series, and that's COVID related, because the body's just not in that peak physical shape that it was previously. So they were ruled out. And then you got some young Indian bowlers that came in, Mohammad Siraj, and guys like who were very keen and who were just excited to be there. And the fact that and on that adrenaline that actually took them over the line. So to me, it's a different take actually, that if you had a guy like perhaps Mohammad Shami, Isan Sharma, Jasper Bumrah, who had been in the IPL bubbles, then in a quarantine, then in Australian bubbles for that long, they might have been fatigued come the end of the series, like possibly, as we saw, Josh Hazlewood, Pat Cummins on that second day of that final test, where India's young batters at the end, the tail enders really did well. Where it might have felt that Australia's bowlers are actually quite fatigued now from being, in this environment and in this bio bubble, where India were fresh, they were hungry, they were raring to go with these new players, who came there wanting to prove a point. So I've got a little bit of a different take on it. I think that actually maybe helped India to secure that historic series victory.
Yeah. But the fresh mind, I think for now, in this current scenario, in this current situation, having that fresh mindset is actually something that would definitely be the key. And let's talk about Sri Lanka versus England. Obviously, Joe Root's double century took them to that level. How do you see it evolving even more? Because Sri Lanka already lost against South Africa, and now this is another clash that they're facing against England.
I think Sri Lanka's main problem is their batting unit. I think at home their spinners will always come into contention. We saw even in that England chase of 76 or something, we saw they were reeling at 14 for 3 at the beginning on on that second last evening. So Sri Lanka spinners will always come into the equation at home. My problem with Sri Lanka is their batting unit, and particularly that first innings. If we saw the way to South Pereira came out in that first innings, that irresponsible reverse sweep when Sri Lanka were 2 wickets down in the first couple of overs. I think Sri Lanka just give it away. They place way too much pressure on a guy like Dinesh Chandimal and Angelo Matthews in terms of just the way they go about building their innings up front. I think Mickey Arthur's probably not going to have much hair left after coaching Sri Lanka, and the way their batting unit, just don't take responsibility up front. They're not keen on batting time. They're not patient, and they go about saying that that's the way they play it and they want to play their shot. But I have a problem with that. I think that Sri Lanka's batting unit, particularly up front, need to take a lot more responsibility if they're going to have any chance in this England series.
Right. Anyways, what we hope eventually that the next test, I hope Sri Lanka manages to take charge of their specifically bowling side. I still remember when Sri Lanka actually stepped into the world of cricket. They were literally very phenomenal. But like I said, times have changed, things have changed, environments have changed, and it has brought them to in the current situation. Anyways, one last question that I would definitely want to ask you with regards to Pakistan versus South Africa before you go. How do you see Pakistan's charge and how would Pakistan be, because we still have that home soil edge? So before you go, how do you see it? Would it be an amazing series, an amazing clash or not?
I think it's going to be a very entertaining series. I think, like I said again from the beginning, these are teams. These are teams that are finding their way. Like you said, Pakistan have this young batting lineup. South Africa have this young bowling lineup. So it could just make for very entertaining cricket. I think Pakistan might just have the edge, even though they have this young side.
All right. Thank you so very much for being with us. It was really nice to have a word with you with regards to the world of cricket. That was Zahid Adams, who joined in from Cape Town, South Africa. But this is all about cricket. Let's move on to NBA. Yes, let's talk about Kyrie Irving. So what really happened was he basically is rejoining the Brooklyn Nets after the leave of absence, which was actually for, at least he missed like 7 matches. And from the entire perspective and all the news and the highlights that I've seen so far is that, he was going through some family things and he wanted to sort them. So he basically tried to cover that up, but now he's coming back and he's rejoining the team. And as you know, when he was not here, Kevin Durant was obviously there and James Harden was on board as well. So it would be definitely an interesting trio that they will make. But you guys can definitely check out this press conference, which he actually did on Zoom for all the fans out there.
My commitment has always been to bringing something special to Brooklyn. It wasn't just a championship. It was unity, it was equality, it's just bigger things than just the game itself. It took quite a while and quite a few valleys to get back home initially. And, I'm back. I'm happy to be back. And we got some great pieces and we just move on. And I let my actions and my game speak for itself like I planned on doing.
And yes, that was Kyrie Irving. But anyways, from the world of football, yes, talking about Fulham versus Manchester United, Paul Pogba actually manages to score the second goal. And, that actually took them ahead of Fulham and, eventually managed to take that victory. And not to forget that, if we go into the standings zone right now, you would be actually surprised to see how interesting the chart is finally becoming. And, that's the entire perspective of Manchester United definitely still on the top and, Manchester City on the second number. So it's going to be an interesting trip with regards to Premier League. And let's talk about Leicester City, which is obviously on the number 3rd. Liverpool is on the 4th. Tottenham is on the number 5th. So we still hope for the best with regards to their victory. Not to forget that they had an amazing match recently with Liverpool as well, and which was kind of turned out to be equalized for both of them. But that would have been an interesting match. But anyways, that was their victory that we talked about. And not only this, if we switch over to the Spanish Cup, yes, let's talk about the Italian Super Cup, where Cristiano Ronaldo managed to score his 760th goal. Not only that, Juventus actually won the cup, which is a super success for him on his entire 4th. It's basically, as he mentioned on his tweet, that it's his 4th Italian victory, and he's super happy about it. And not to forget that he has been awarded as the player of the century lately, a few days ago, which had obviously added a lot of value to his work. And you know, Cristiano Ronaldo should keep up his good work with regards to staying on top with his 760th goal. And not only this was the football side. And let's switch over to another interesting news, which definitely I'd want to talk about. It's the Grand National winning rider David Mullins has announced his retirement from the saddle at the age of 24. And not to forget that being a 24-year-old person, he had literally overall in 2016 he had like 9 grade 1 victories. And not only that, he's actually managed to have so many victories that, you know, he eventually decided, you know, total of 211 career wins. So that's a huge list of victories that he had. But, you know, he's announced retirement, which I'm sure that, you know, and someone retiring at the age of 24 means that he's done his part with regards to sports world. But anyways, these were the basic news with regards to sports, all the sports up. This is your host Alamdar Khan. If you want to reach out to us, please reach out to us on our social media handles, which is @ Indus News Sports. Till then, take good care of yourself, and bye-bye.